slides in just a moment or two. So this session is going to help us with social emotional learning. It's been critical for us, especially during these times. Remote learning, we're trying to transition face to face. We're not exactly sure what will happen with that. Miss Danielle Locklear is from Pembroke, North Carolina. She worked in public education for 18 years. She graduated from UNC Pembroke in 1998 and began to work as a school social worker for Hope County Schools. She returned to pursue her master's in social work, and she graduated in 2017 and transferred to a new position at District Mental Health Coordinator 2018. She enjoys spending time with her children and values family time above all else. We'll just go over a couple of slides. So this bit.ly here will help you, you can get access, and I will show you what this leads to after I go over these 4 slides here. This bit.ly here will show you more of our agenda, because again, we end at 12:30 today, but there's a number of activities and things that are going on today. Feel free to use this. We welcome you to our new Beginning Teacher Leadership Symposium. Our hashtag is Learn, Grow, Lead, because that's our goal for our classrooms. Our virtual norm, be actively present, but if you have something to say, please ask that question. You can participate in all the activities that are done, be vulnerable, take a risk and ask the question. The chat feature, I'll be helping Miss Danielle with that, so feel free to ask any question that you need. And we're having our Twitter contest, and where Miss Danielle is going to share a lot of inspiring information. Feel free to tweet about what she says, and if you need information from our Brave coaches, all the information is on here. This session will be recorded for you, and so on the bit.ly, when you click on the bit.ly, I will show you what it will take you to. So today, for the close of our meeting, be sure that you move this real quick. Be sure to stop sharing for a moment. Be sure that you look at the bit.ly. I will show you what that looks like. Let me share my screen with you one more time. Okay. Then we'll let Miss Danielle get started. So for our bit.ly, you'll be able to see the information about our participants and also our schedule. So after today, after this session with Danielle, there's our session, our whole group session. We'll have a panel discussion group. We'll have our Teachers of the Year answering questions. It'll be a really organic conversation where you can ask direct questions with them. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let Miss Danielle take over. Do we have any questions before we start? Okay, if not, I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions. And feel free to use a chat function. And this video, this being recorded, will be sent to you as all the other videos will that were made today.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me get here and move this over. All right, so can we get started? We ready? Miss Alicia, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, good morning. I want to welcome everyone to this morning's session on social and emotional learning. As you are aware, the social and emotional development is for our students is important to their academic achievement. In recent years, social and emotional development has become a primary focus for developing a healthy foundation for academic success. In a recent poll or survey that was collected during COVID-19, caregivers reported, about 86% of the caregivers reported that there were changes in their children's behavior of expression of emotions during the quarantine. It ranged from difficulty concentrating, problems with boredom, irritability, restlessness, loneliness, discomfort, and they even expressed a sense of weariness. As you may know, with the prolonged isolation during the pandemic, it can cause a really high stress and psychological consequence for our children. And those of us that have worked in the school system know that a prolonged and unmanaged exposure to stress can lead to mental health concerns, conduct disorders, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. As we begin to move back into the brick and mortar, it's important that we all have the skills and knowledge to help students develop resiliency skills so that they are better equipped to adapt to the rapidly changing landscape of school. We will spend the remainder of this time focusing on the social and emotional development of young children. We have chosen to discuss social and emotional competencies using the tenets of CASTLE. If you're not familiar with CASTLE, CASTLE is a collaborative of academic, social, and emotional learning. It's a website or a source, a resource that has a high quality, evidence-based social and emotional programs, research, and application. As we know across the country right now, there is a growing momentum to develop a common language, develop common goals and strategies for implementing SEL into our academic instruction. Today's focus will be on understanding the social and emotional learning, exploring the social and emotional competencies, and implementing social and emotional learning in our school climate and within our academic instruction. I want you to take a minute and reflect on what was the best experience you ever had in school? What was the worst experience you ever had in school? And how did that make you feel? At the end of the day, and based on all of our own independent experiences, we all have our own story. That same experience is for our children as well. Positive memories of school are filled with feelings of respect, feelings of value. They feel supported. The memories are meaningful to our students. And when our students have that meaning, can carry that value and respect, they feel they're part of something and feel very valued. So we want to take a moment and make sure that we do our part to create those positive memories. Now, in retrospect, we also know that students can create negative memories too. And when they feel that they are demeaned or they are belittled or they're labeled or they feel separate from their peers. And then, or if they hear accusations about you're lazy or you're unmotivated or I need you to pay closer attention, those students begin to lose interest in their academic outcomes. Now, where we're at with social emotional learning, social emotional development, we're able to change that and make it something different. As teachers, we have the ability to grow and develop these young people. And as adults, we have the ability to grow and develop ourselves when we begin to learn and understand our own social emotional development. One of my favorite quotes when I think about social emotional learning is this: I have learned that people will forget what is said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Regardless if we're working in a remote or face-to-face, feelings can influence our decisions. It can compel us to take actions, whether they are big actions or small actions. Understanding feelings is a key component to emotional awareness. Understanding the way we feel can enhance our communication. It strengthens our relationships with one another. The one thing about the tenets with SEL and social emotional learning that I do enjoy using with CASTLE is that they overlap the principles of that trauma-informed approach or that trauma-informed instruction that we utilize in school. Because some of the components of that trauma-informed learning is that it's safety, connection, and regulation, and all those overlap when we talk about SEL. So what is SEL? Well, referring back to CASTLE once again, I want to bring your attention to it is a collaborative of academic, social, and emotional learning, and that it defines SEL as a process through which children and adults acquire knowledge, attitude, and skills to recognize and manage their emotions, set and achieve positive goals, and demonstrate concern for others. and establish positive relationships and make responsible decisions. One thing I want you to pay close attention to is that we highlight children and adults, because as adults, in order for us to facilitate and teach and learn and engage students in SEL, we have to be aware of our own social and emotional. We do this through coordinating strategies that are explicitly given to our students. We understand their strengths and their needs. We want to help them manage their emotions so they can persevere during those challenging times. We want to think about others and empathize. We have a generation of young people now that are not a very empathetic generation, and they're very impulsive. We want to get our students prepared so they can work on teams and work together to resolve conflicts. And we want them to be so they can make responsible choices, because responsible choices is imperative to their growth. I want to show you a clip, and the clip is sort of long, but it's a really good, give you a good idea and help you capture the components of SEL. So I'm gonna play this clip. I hope everyone is able to see it, and it plays for us.
Social emotional skills are the essential skills for success in school, work, and life. Social emotional learning centers their mind and body. It reduces their emotional tension so they can be open to new content and material. We find that academic outcomes increase exponentially when students are nurtured, loved, and cared for, that we get much more out of them when we first address social emotional needs. So for us, it's actually an academic intervention and not just an emotional one. If we expect students to be college and career ready, it's important for us to focus on these skills and competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Self-awareness is the ability to identify your emotions, to be able to tie thoughts and feelings to behaviors. We find that self-awareness is one of the hardest things for young people, being aware of their own body space and the impact of their words and emotions on other people. So a lot of the work we do is reflective, through conflict mediation, through circles, through journaling, having them see their own impact on the world, and then how to shift that or make a different choice next time. Self-management is the ability to self-motivate, to have self-control, to regulate one's emotions. In the classroom, that may be a breathing exercise, or that might be counting 5 or taking a break.
So with students who don't really know how to deal with their anger or don't really know how to resolve conflict, we're giving them a tool that helps them deal with it in a less stressful way.
Social awareness is about embracing diversity, showing empathy for others. Activities might include service learning projects, addressing social justice issues. Role playing is a great opportunity for students to address how a person might have felt in a conflict on the playground.
We're going to see if other people have had some of the very same experiences around bullying that we've had.
You're in my boat if you have a bully now.
Well, I see a lot of people.
Relationship skills are important in project-based learning. It's the ability to work cooperatively with someone to resolve conflict. It's the one skill you need your whole life. You may not need calculus tomorrow, but you have to know how to work in a relationship, whether it's for a coworker or a life partner. You have to know how to handle conflict and how to handle challenges.
Sometimes at recess, Maya would come over and just start talking about us and saying mean things.
Is it your job to make Danae's job at school hard?
I know it's a form of bullying, and sometimes I'll say sorry to her.
So you choose to be someone's ally and make a better choice. Responsible decision-making is considering the well-being for self and others. It's evaluating the consequences for various behaviors or actions. We do this through shared agreements, one-to-one problem solving, or having students debate an issue.
If you were like, hey, Kashida, how much does an egg cost in this class?
and you like took out your wallet. And I was like, $50 would work. Which one of us would be correct in that case? You're the one that's asking for the money.
We're truly teaching these students to be productive citizens. We're teaching them life skills. We're teaching them how to problem solve effectively. We're teaching them how to be resilient.
I think of all the billions of dollars we've spent on Title I and all these intervention programs. And when all is said and done, what do we have to show for it? I think we're trying to teach technical things instead of devoting some of the resources to teach who you are as a person. Once you know who you are, then learning becomes exciting because you've already established a discipline.
It's important for teachers and principals to understand that it can't be a binder off the shelf. It can't be something that happens from 2:15 to 4:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It has to be part of the school culture. Giving teachers flexibility, giving them a range of skills, giving them different ways that it can look, and allowing them to take their own personality and match that to what they want in their classroom has been the best way to get authentic, true practice.
If we continue to do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we always got. Is that good enough? I don't think it's good enough for the 21st century. We need to be the outliers to try things that have never been tried and see if they work. What are we waiting for?
Miss Danielle, that was very eye-opening, seeing it from that point of view. Did anybody have any questions so far?
All right, we will continue. And that is a really good video. I like to use that video because it sort of kind of captures everything together. But also at the end of that video, it gives you some research and data. And that's also included in this PowerPoint as well as the DURALAC study. And we'll talk a little bit more about it shortly. But also, too, I want to speak about is how do we do this? That's the biggest thing, I think, the challenge when we talk with our teachers and our district is how do I implement this into what I'm already doing? Because I already have enough to do. I don't want to have to do more. Well, McGraw-Hill Publishing conducted some research and explored the implementations of the 5 competencies and developed these guiding principles to help teachers understand how they could implement building this social emotional learning into their school day. And these several principles are listed here. And one of them is about, and when I look at them, all I think about is teachers, because this is what teachers do every day. They create a safe learning environment that is nurturing and caring and positive for students. And we all know safety is that fundamental need when we talk about the Maslow hierarchy of needs. That is something that we have to have in order for us to grow. When we look at respect and fostering that respect for oneself and others, and integrating it across our curriculum and in our selected context and what we use in our classrooms, how do we tie it into our core instruction each day? Communication, demonstrating and model empathetic skills. A lot of times, so many of our children have experienced so many things as it relates to trauma. They need to be able to tell their story. And lastly, empowering, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Empowering our students to take charge of their own social and emotional learning and reflect on the social and cultural context that is embedded in the SEL. Those are all important. The research that they spoke about in the recent video was the DURALAC study. The DURALAC study was a meta-analysis that was conducted in 2011. It was one of the largest studies that was conducted. It looked at about 213 programs that were actually conducting an SEL program. When I talk about an ongoing SEL program. I'm talking like programs for some of you. In some of your districts, you may have programs such as PATHs or Second Step or some other programs that's research-based that is currently going on. So they looked at these programs that were already implemented and said, hey, look, this is what the outcome for the research says for us. And it showed that students participating in these programs, in these social emotional skill programs, demonstrated significant improvement when it comes to social emotional skills, attitudes, and behavior, and academic performance gained by 11%. It also showed a reduction in conduct behaviors, aggressive behavior, and emotional distress. Now, at the bottom of this slide, I've included that study, but also since this particular study in 2011, 6 years later, I think it was conducted in 2017, they have recently released some new research as it relates to the same competencies and SEL programs implemented into school settings. And I think I attached that particular research at the end under resources. If that's some information you like, Ms. Strickland definitely has access to that, and they've released some new information since 2011.
And guys, also this, again, everybody will get access to everything. You'll get an email with all the information for every presentation today.
Teachers who possess social emotional competence are more likely to stay in the classroom longer. Teachers with high levels of social competence are better able to protect themselves from burnout. And we won't talk much about this, but when it talks about being able to protect themselves, it's talking about being able to understand our own social awareness, be able to understand our own self-awareness, be able to regulate our own emotions. And not only that, is being responsible for our own self-care plan. At the end of the day, we take home so much. It's important that we maintain a self-care plan. So when we talk about teachers and managing their own social competence, think about self-care as well. Developing and managing and nurturing relationships with their students. When we develop relationships with our students, it's a little easier for us to manage and help them regulate their emotions because they value that relationship. Managing behaviors in the classroom. When we manage behaviors in the classroom, that sort of kind of slows down those students who struggle and are stimulated very quickly. That can sort of kind of minimize that stimulation for them. Serving as a behavioral role model. We definitely want to see students let students know that we're not pulled in. Sometimes those students who struggle to regulate their emotions and they get frustrated really easy. Sometimes if we don't regulate ourselves, we find ourselves getting caught up into and getting pulled into some of their behaviors as well. So let's make sure we regulate our own emotions and model that so that students know how to regulate their emotions. There's a lot of myths with SEL. One myth in particular, it talks about SEL is for younger students. And I do know that one of the things with SEL and our particular pre-K students is that pre-K has their own standard course of study. And back several years ago, I want to say it was back in 2011 as well, or it may have been in 2013. I'm not sure. I did look at some of the research as it related to that. There was a group that was conducted some study across the state, and they wanted to improve our pre-K program. So as a result of our pre-K improvement process, they went in and they aligned our SEL standards to tie into with the pre-K academic instruction. So that sort of kind of integrated that SEL across that pre-K curriculum. So now pre-K has their own standards as it relates to SEL. But however, don't be confused. SEL is for everyone, not just for pre-K students, but for everyone, children and adults. SEL isn't for students who excel academically. One thing that I've noticed in my position as working as district coordinator is that oftentimes we fail to look at our students in our IG because they're extremely bright, and sometimes they sort of kind of fly under the radar when we look at that social and emotional. So we can't forget that population of students because even our brightest students can excel if they're not able to manage their emotions. SEL is for students who are not taught to behave at home. Sometimes we get a little frustrated with students when they come to school. We call it couch to school. Sometimes students who come from couch to school who have not experienced a school setting, even like for daycare, sometimes we think, well, that's the population of students who really need SEL. or it's those students whose parents are not being reared by their biological parents. They may be reared in foster care, or they may be reared by grandparents or another caregiver. We often think those students need more SEL than others, and that is not true. SEL is open up to all students, and we all can benefit from SEL. And the last myth is SEL is the job of support personnel. That is another group of staff personnel that has their own group of SEL standards. When you complete the program for school guidance curriculum, it's built in, because that's the things that we do. As we work with students on a day-to-day as social workers and school counselors, that is our target population of students that we serve. But at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of everyone in our building to promote SEL. From our, the folks that drive our bus, that welcome our students on the bus seat today, for the folks in the cafeteria who greet them for breakfast each morning. Everybody has a vested responsibility in promoting SEL. So let's take a quick look at our social emotional competencies. But as we read over our competencies, I want us to think about how we model these competencies within our daily life. Self-awareness. Do we know our own strengths and limitations? And are we well grounded with a sense of confidence and growth? Do we practice that growth mindset? Do we effectively manage our own stress? Do we control our impulses? Do I self-motivate myself and set goals and try to achieve them? Do I understand and have perspective of others? Do I empathize with others? Do I include or think about or talk about or understand the diverse backgrounds and cultures around me? What about my relationship skills? Can I communicate clearly? Do I listen well? Can I cooperate with my coworkers and others? Do I resist inappropriate peer pressure? Can I work with others to negotiate conflict? Can I seek and offer help when it's needed? Oh, well, and how well am I with that is responsible decision making? Can I make constructive choices? Do I utilize a process of decision making? Are my interactions based on a moral standard of safety and social norms? Think about that for just a moment. When we think about social emotional competencies and we teach it, when we think about integrating this into our core instruction, how do we go about implementing this in our day-to-day instruction? Early on, we talked about CASEL and we talked about the SEL competencies. And if you just take a minute to write down this particular website, casel.org, core competencies, this will allow you to go to this website. It will take you on a short clip of each of the standards, the competencies. So we'll talk about self-awareness, and it will talk about what it looks like, and it takes you through a brief video. We don't have the time to do that today. We did that in some of our previous training, but it gives you a little bit more in-depth look into each of the competencies. So at some point, you can take some time and review those. That will be a lot of help for those of you who maybe who not yet understand each one individually and to understand how to incorporate it into your core instruction.
Participants, if you're not in a space where you can write this down right now, whenever you get the email with all the information embedded, feel free to use that link then, and feel free to go through those competencies and just help you know your students a lot better.
The social emotional wheel as it relates to our classroom, our school, and our community. We're going to spend some time talking a little bit about these three areas because it's very important that we know how to embed that in our day-to-day practice. One of the things that we really struggle is I think sometimes we get a little frustrated when we talk about embedding SEL with our families, and we talk about our homes and our communities. While we've been home and we've been working remotely, some of the things that we've been doing as a district is sort of kind of trying to build relationship with some of our families. When we see our students within the context of their home and sort of kind of see their surroundings, it's a little easy for us to sort of kind of establish that relationship. For us as educators, we've seen more of the parents doing we've been on remote than we have ever before, because they log in for their students, or they may come in and check in to make sure they're on the screen with their teacher and they're checking in. So at some point we've engaged a little more as it relates to relationship when it comes to home. We always want to take that moment to engage our parents, but also too, while we're talking with our parents and we have them within that a platform, it also gives us an opportunity to tell them, have those conversations and encourage our parents to listen more and being more engaged, not only in their academics, but sort of kind of as part of that check-in to see where our students are socially and emotionally. The other piece that we want to talk with our parents about is getting our parents to teach the children to self-talk and to motivate themselves. If we can help our parents become motivated and teach them how to motivate their students, then that makes them more willing and more eager to engage in school. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we've did in our school when we talk about our school setting and promoting ECL. One of the projects that you see in our corner is, you see the word kind. And this is one of our school-wide efforts that we used in one of our schools to promote our SELs. It was in our art class, and one of the things that she promoted was diversity. And in the picture, you will see some little statues in there, and every one is of a different color. So that was a good way for us to bring about social awareness. And we were able to generate conversation around different ethnicity groups and celebrating differences, and then how we treat others when we celebrate differences. So we were able to do that in some of our school-wide efforts. Everyone in this particular school participated in this project, and you can also see in the background there were other projects that were aligned with this particular project at that particular school. And we also do our prevention programs, which some of you probably already offer in your school, like our bully prevention program is something that's pretty standard in our district. We do our PBIS, and there's some other things like our morning check-ins. We do a morning check-in in our whole school, but some of you probably do morning check-ins in your classroom as well. So there are some programs that have established some universal implementations of SEL throughout their schools and throughout their classrooms.
Ms. Daniel, we have a question in the chat from Ms. Michelle, and it says, do you happen to have the details for those art projects? I'd like to incorporate them in my classroom. And I will say now too, with the, now with the race relations, wanting to introduce that to students in a kid-friendly way, that would be a really good way. But Ms. Michelle was wondering if you have more information on the art projects.
I will, and what I can do is I can link her, if Ms. Strickland at the very end. I do have the teacher, her name is Miss Loving, and she's at McLaughlin Elementary School. And that is, she is an awesome art teacher, and she does lots of things such as this for the students. So, but her name is Miss Loving, and she's at McLaughlin Elementary School here in Rayford. So I can give you some more details with her email address at the end.
Okay, even if you put a chat box or anything, thank you, Miss Danielle. Miss Michelle, thank you for your question.
And the other picture on the side, what you'll see is it's our service learning. We take pride in one particular project in our district when it comes to service learning. Every November, we celebrate the week of hunger and homeless. And we do a district-wide where we incorporate community as part of, and as part of our service learning, we involve our beta clubs and all of our service learning clubs in our schools, and we collect as much as we possibly can for our Second Harvest Food Bank. This particular picture that you're seeing in this particular clip is one we did during this time of the hurricane. And we donated this particular collection to, I think, Knuckles Elementary in Robinson County. But we do this every year, and it is a huge project that we take on. It's led by our school social workers. But when I tell you our folks take pride, they come out and they walk. Our law enforcement, our DSS, our health department, everyone gets invested in this project. And it has turned out to be a really huge project over the last couple of years. I think this may have been our 11th or 12th year in doing this particular project, but it really embeds our community into service learning and creating that SEL for our community. The other piece I want to talk about is developing that common language. And that's why we stick to the 5 competencies of CASEL, so that we can create that common language. And so everyone is talking and using the same competencies throughout. In our classrooms, In our classroom, we foster very supportive classrooms and environments so that we can provide the opportunity for not just explicit lessons, but we take those natural opportunities as well to facilitate that SEL. We utilize freestanding lessons. So what we did early on when we began to do training around SEL was that we created a list of resources. Now, at the end of this PowerPoint, and that's, and I'm sure Ms. Strickland probably can share those too, there are a list of SEL websites and places you can go to get freestanding lessons. But also too, you already have so many resources already in your classroom that's already embedded in your core instruction that you can create freestanding lessons. Now, I do know that some of our schools here in our district have decided they're going to do, like, for example, they're going to do a freestanding lesson on Fridays or on Mondays. And what they do throughout the week, they may incorporate a lesson, just say, on self-awareness. Throughout the week, they may build in different little activities, sort of kind of build on that same competency for the course of the week. And each Monday, they may rotate that lesson and focus on something different each week. But in the corner, there's a picture of a little boy with a book called The Invisible Boy. And this is a perfect book when we talk about teaching SEL and using, making it an opportunity to have those discussions around what it's like to be different, or what it's like not to fit in, or to focus on the social awareness piece of what it's like to not be included or be part of a group. So we take those opportunities to incorporate that within our teaching strategies, sort of kind of build those conversations so that we can model and help children understand what it is to be empathetic and caring for others. So that's how we sort of kind of infuse that into our curriculum and our instruction.
And Miss Danielle, your slides are so content rich and they're so informative. We'll make sure that participants not only get this video, but we'll make sure that they get, if it's okay, the slides. You said to share the slides as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and that's fine. We've used quite a bit of this information with our training. And to be honest, each time I train on SEL, I add a little bit more and a little bit more. So it just keeps adding on. If I try to get some new research, I try to add it at the end. So at the end, there's probably a lot of information that may be helpful, especially for those teachers where SEL is new as far as integrating into their content. I do know that across the region, some programs have been awarded a grant called Project Aware. And I know that Project Aware has been able to staff some additional folks within their districts to help facilitate and really reinforce the SEL and to sort of kind of mitigate those mental health issues in their district. Unfortunately, not every county has had the opportunity to get that particular grant, but I think everybody is hopeful. One other thing that I did find out as of last week was, in result of school reentry and coming back to the brick and mortar, the state, and there's a work group at DPI right now that's working on a set of SEL standards to help align with academic curriculum. So that'll be very helpful for not just new teachers coming into our districts, but also all teachers that's currently in practicing, educational practice. So that'd be a really good resource. Now, they did say they would not be released until July sometime or August, but I do know there's a work group working on that because that was one of my specific questions last week with one of the members of the work group. So getting back to fostering opportunity with SEL, it's everyone's responsibility. We take those natural opportunities. If we're in the hallway, if there's a bus driver and he's on the bus and a kid gets on the bus and he's crying, that's that natural opportunity to say, look, what's going on? Why are you upset? Let's talk about how you feel. We can take 2 minutes to do that, to check in with that student, to make that a better bus ride for that student to school. Because once he gets to school and he's had that small little conversation with that bus driver, it may turn around his whole entire day. So making sure that we do those check-ins and making sure we take that time to talk with students. And not only that, when we're in the classrooms and we're doing our general teaching, we want to incorporate things like role play. Or not only that, what I really love to go into the classroom and see is those bucket fillers, and those morning meetings. Some of our classroom have incorporated what they call restorative circles in some of our morning meetings, and some of the kids get together and they get around in a circle and they talk about what's going to happen for the day and how they feel. And it's usually prompted with a sentence stem. And so the kids just sort of kind of fill in the blank. And that's a really good morning starter for some of our smaller classrooms, because students want to tell their story. So we got to create that and create that space for safe sharing for our students. Self-awareness. We talked a little bit about self-awareness and how it is having that clear perception of personality, to understand other people and how they perceive you. You know, can we identify our emotions? Because sometimes identifying emotions is simple for us in our classrooms. It's just posting our emotions or posting those happy faces, happy, glad, mad, sad, or putting it in a place where students are able to connect and relate to that. Another thing that some of our students do is doing a morning check-in. You know, we are a district where we have a one-to-one device. So many of our students are able to go in the morning time as part of their check-in and click on a face. So the teacher can actually see the face of how they're feeling once they start their day. So if I go in there and I click a sad face, she automatically knows there's something going on, and she can create that time within that day to say, hey, what's going on? I noticed this morning you clicked in and you showed a sad face. So I just want to check in and see how you're doing. It's helping students be able to understand and identify their own self-awareness. Could be just as simple as incorporating that into your morning meeting. Helping them accurately self, and giving that accurate self-perception. Helping them recognize their own strengths and build their self-confidence. And, that can be really hard for some of our children when, they live maybe in an environment where they're really beat down. And so when they come to school, they really need that lift up. So working with our students to build their self-confidence. And a lot of times when we gauge students and we know they're emotionally and, pretty self-aware, for instance, I gave an example at the bottom of the screen. A student who has a talent of music, may decide that she wants to take choir. She knows that she's a really good singer and I really do good in choir class. So she may pass up the opportunity for gym class to build on something that she knows she already has confidence about or she's really good at. So those students we know have an idea of where with self-awareness. When a child feels confident in themselves, while focusing on specific skills in academics, they are more apt to find more opportunities to perform that skill. In turn, they will continue to grow their competency in that area. And that's what we want to do, is we want to build our young people. When they develop that self-awareness, it's about reflection, that mindfulness, what's going on right now, what you feel, how can you connect, creating that vocabulary so they know what words to use to connect with how they feel. And practicing being a good listener, that can be a huge piece, and identifying those triggers. One way we may want to ask is how do the body respond? Where do you feel it at? Is that feeling in your stomach? Is that feeling in your hands? Do you feel twiggly in your fingers? Are your legs shaking? And help them be able to identify and connect with what they're feeling, with how they're feeling, with the word off their feeling vocabulary will help those students learn that, because they have to get to a place so they can describe how they feel so they can grow from it. Self-management. This is a really, really big one when we talk about classroom. The ability to successfully regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in different situations, and effectively managing their stress and controlling their impulses. The ability to set and work toward personal and academic goals. This is a really big one. So what a lot of our teachers do is spend a lot of time making sure that we have a place set aside for mindfulness so they can sort of kind of go to a safe place. They may need a time to reflect. They may need to review classroom expectations. That's usually what we do. Let me take you to this slide right here and I'll give you a little bit more ideas. Some of the external and internal differences that we see is some of our kids who are external may, yell out or slam doors or leave the class really upset. But then we have those students who have internalizing behaviors that we may fly under the radar because we don't necessarily see. And we may not see these behaviors until they begin to test and have concerns with testing. So they may become sick during testing time. So these is when we talk about unpacking that self-management, it's important that we understand those internal and those external behaviors.
Miss Danielle, I'm just letting you know we have about 6 minutes left.
Yes, ma'am. And we're going to fly through these. I figured this was going to be a lot of information, but I could not miss the opportunity to share it.
No problem.
When we talk about self-management, some really great things we can do is doing the 2-minute check-ins, doing calm down kits, creating positive work environments, and setting clear expectations. Social awareness. Social awareness is really big as we deal with the things that's going on in our society right now. It's taking that time to be empathetic. We talked a lot about how do we teach diversity and teach differences and respecting others. You know, a lot of times we take those natural opportunities like we did what we talked about earlier about our service learning projects to help our students. Because like, for instance, when we collected our canned food, a lot of times that canned food goes to our homeless population and we create baskets and things. So we build social awareness around those natural opportunities and those things within that we find relevant in our lives. So recognizing that and looking toward empathizing with others and possessing that willingness to understand and respect those cultural differences. And this is another really good book that sort of kind of creates that and helps us to understand is, you know, spaghetti and a hot dog bun. If you get a chance to watch this video, it's a really good video. I always enjoy watching this particular video when we talk about creating sentence stems and helping them understand the feelings of emotions when we hurt someone's feelings. I have provided a list of recommended book lists that talks about, and it breaks it down into grade level to give you some books that you could use when it talks about diversity in different cultures. And maybe this is something, you know, Ms. Strickland can share as well.
Yes, and everybody's going to get the video version of what because we're recording, but you'll also get the slides, so you'll have access to all this wonderful information that Miss Danielle sharing with us.
Relationships. I will say that one of the things that our district did this past year, this was our platform, our school for our entire district this year, is relationship matters, because we cannot grow students if we don't have the ability to have a relationship with them. We have to have that engagement. We have to build our students to a place where they can communicate and work in teams and engage socially. And this is a really good way to practice that. If we have a student who presents a challenge for us sometime, we'll call it the Tuba 10. It's where we spend 2 minutes a day for 10 days in a row talking with one student about whatever that student wants to talk to, just so we can build that deeper connection with that student. And it doesn't have to be anything related to school. It could be whatever that student wants to talk about. And this is one of the strategies that we practiced this past school year. And we also can unpack these relationships. So remember, we talked a little earlier about our circle time, and we have our chess club that we do for after school, one of our APEN programs, which are after school Army youth programs. We do a chess club, and our kids have a chance to build relationships that way, even in our after school programs and with our project-based learning. And this is another one of my favorite videos I had to incorporate. If you have not seen Miss Rita Pearson's video on Every Child Deserves a Champion, you have got to see it. She has passed away, but her words still carry on. We talk about relationships matter. This was a relationship with one of our custodians in our district who fostered a wonderful relationship with a young man. And now they rely on him to do all the little custodial work when the custodian's not there. And they have a wonderful relationship with them, and it built his confidence so much. That was an outstanding relationship there. Strategies for building relationships with students is showing that positive interaction with students and helping just to be kindness and showing acceptance to others, and implementing interventions for difficult relationships when you know that students are having. We use peer mediation quite often to sort of kind of help with that and facilitate that process. And our last one is decision making. Decision making is giving those students the ability to analyze situations, solve problems, and not only that, but reflect on that process. We also know that decision making comes from those cores and morals and values that children are reared. Not always do we know what their value systems are, but we do know students make decisions based on their own value systems. This is the decision maker model that we use in our district when we talk about making healthy decisions. Identify the decision, brainstorm our options, what are our possible outcomes, make a decision and follow through, and then we reflect on the decision that we made, because we want to see how we got there. And if it was a healthy decision, we want to make sure that we post this process for students so they can go back to it, and it's always posted for them if they get in a difficult place, they have that process for them. Sorry about that. And we talked about standards. The only programs in our state right now that has a built-in set of SEL standards are health education, our pre-K program, and our guidance counselor curriculums. And like I was telling you earlier, there is a work team that was working to develop that. And there's a 3-5. These are just some really good resources for you to be able to tie into your teaching practice. And these are all linked to a website. So when you get this, please, feel free to go on there and look for some really good freestanding lessons and implementations into how you can integrate SEO into your lesson planning. Some more resources for freestanding lessons. I will tell you, states like Missouri has a set of standards already, and they are really good and outlined. It links you to some already lessons. There was a website for movies if you want to incorporate movies into your classroom instruction. And the emotional ABCs, we use those a lot for elementary school. And always that Centervention is a really good resource.
Miss Danielle, we're getting ready to close out, but we had a question that said, you're still with Hope County Schools?
Yes, ma'am. Is that what you're asking me? Am I with Hope County Schools?
Yes, someone asking to Hope.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I work for Hope County Schools.
Well, as Miss Danielle finishes up, don't forget to, Miss Michelle, congratulations for getting hired there. As Miss Danielle finishes up in the next couple minutes, don't forget to attend the other sessions. There will be some door prizes given out, so feel free to attend those. They're on your agenda. Miss Danielle, we can't thank you enough. I know I haven't been enlightened today. I've learned so much, but I'm gonna let you just close out with any closing remarks.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share SEO. I know SEO is going to be very meaningful and very important as our students return to the brick and mortar this fall. I know our district is working really hard, trying to work on a plan right now as it incorporates students returning in a various, remotely, half and full time. So, based on the decisions of the state, we'll be making that transition, and that platform and that landscape is going to look very different for our students. So I want to encourage everyone, if you participated today in this, take the time to look at some of the resources and pull out some of these freestanding lessons, because it will be imperative to the success of your teaching experience as students return to the building.
Miss Danielle and participants, we thank you so much. You get a copy of this recording. You get a copy of this presentation. So please come back at 11:30 for the session. And again, your name might come up for a prize. So Miss Danielle, again, we're honored. Thank you so much. Thank you for participants. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording at this time.